Station Echo 7 floated in the deep black above the Los Prime, a dead star that hadn't burned in over 10,000 years. Around it, space stretched empty and cold, with only faint glows from distant systems breaking the endless dark. The station's hull groaned now and then, adjusting against the slow pull of invisible forces. Inside, the quiet hum of machines filled the silence. Dr. Alaravos sat alone in the main comms chamber, staring at a screen full of blinking red alerts. Her eyes, tired from days without rest, moved across the data feed. She brushed a lock of dark hair from her face and frowned. "LY next," she said, her voice steady but low. "Run the scan again." The AI's voice came from above, calm and clear. "Running diagnostic. Signal failure confirmed in sectors Epsilon 9 through Lambda 12. Outer colonies have ceased all quantum traffic." Alara leaned back in her chair. That made 11 colonies. 11 entire systems that had simply gone dark. No static. No corrupted code. Just gone. And it wasn't a malfunction. Everything else on Echo 7 worked perfectly. "Run a latency check on Relay Beacon Theta," she said. "Beacon Theta is online," LY Next replied, "but it is no longer receiving inbound transmissions. Outbound signals are not reaching intended destinations." Alara rubbed her temples. Quantum relays didn't fail like this. Not system after system. Not without some warning. She brought up the map. Human space spread like a spider's web across the Orion Arm, and near the far edge, colony dots blinked steadily. Or they had. Now, only a few lights remained. The rest had faded out over the past 4 days. "Maybe a cascade network failure," she said aloud, though she didn't believe it. "Statistically improbable," LY Next replied. "The relay network contains 12 redundancies per sector. Complete collapse of each, across this distance, is statistically equivalent to winning a galactic lottery, twice." Alara snorted softly. "In other words, impossible." She stood and walked to the viewing window. Below, the Los Prime spun like a forgotten coin, its surface warped and cracked from long-extinct forces. This dead star had once powered a dozen mining colonies. Now, it powered only Echo 7. And something far stranger was happening out here than the loss of a few signals. A soft beep made her turn. An incoming ship alert. Alara rushed to the console. LY Next, confirm. Unscheduled approach. Civilian pod. Signature, Delphi. 9 escape module. Alara froze. Delphi 9 was one of the missing colonies. Life signs, she asked quickly. 1. Weak. Cryopod detected. Estimated dock in 5 minutes. Alara moved fast. She grabbed her coat and ran to the docking bay. The cold metallic floor echoed beneath her boots as she passed dimly lit corridors. Most of the station's crew had evacuated weeks ago due to funding cuts. Only Alara and a few droids remained, maintaining the station's critical relay systems. The airlock cycled open with a hiss. A small, battered pod drifted into the bay. Its surface was scarred with burns and dents. Alara approached the hatch and pried it open. Inside, surrounded by flickering emergency lights, lay a man in cryosleep. She pulled up the ID. Rian Vale, she read. Civilian technician. Delphi 9. She activated the thawing sequence. Minutes later, the pod hissed and Rian's eyes fluttered open. He gasped and coughed violently, grabbing Alara's arm with weak fingers. "They're coming," he rasped. "They shut us all down, like lights going out. No warning. No sound. Just darkness." Alara leaned closer. "Who? What shut you down?" But he passed out before he could answer. She sat back on her heels, staring at the unconscious man. Something was happening out there. Something that could silence entire colonies. And now, it was coming here. The docking bay lights hummed above as Dr. Alaravos knelt beside the cryopod. Rian Vale lay within, the gel in his tubes flickering between blue and fading red. She watched the thaw sequence progress, heart pounding as each percentage ticked upward. 4, 5, 6. His chest rose in a shallow breath, then stilled. 7, 8. Finally, at 99%, the pod's hatch clicked open. Rian slumped forward, and Alara caught him under the arms, easing him onto the cold metal floor. He coughed harshly, gagging on stale air. Alara pressed a medkit button at her side. A warm gel flowed into his mouth. He spat it out, eyes wide with fear. "It's okay," Alara said gently. "You're safe here. You're on Echo 7 station. I'm Dr. Alaravos." Rian's gaze flickered around the bay, exposed girders, suspended cranes, and the distant curve of the Los Prime's smoldering hull. He swallowed, eyes watering. "Echo 7. I thought we were alone." She helped him sit against the bulkhead. You're not alone anymore. Tell me what happened on Delphi 9. He took a shuddering breath. It started with the lights. One moment, everything was normal power, comms, life support, everyone was talking. Then, halfway through the work shift, our comms unit glitched. We heard a high-pitched tone, like metal grinding in your ear. Then, silence. No alarms, no manual override. Systems just died. Alara switched on a portable data pad and began scanning his clothes for a signal recorder. You were working in maintenance? She asked, voice calm. He nodded. Civilian tech. I kept the generators running. I heard the tone from the core chamber and ran back to the hub. By then, every terminal was dark. No readouts. I tried the manual backup, but it was fried, like something fried the circuits from the inside out. Alara frowned, fingers flying across the pad. She downloaded his recorded logs, isolating the last 10 seconds before blackout. Show me the audio clip. She pressed play. A thin, keening note emerged, low at first, then rising to a shrill pitch. Rian winced, covering his ears. The tone warped, bending as if bending space itself, before cutting off abruptly. That, Alara whispered. That frequency, quantum harmonics. It can destabilize entangled notes. She paused. Someone or something engineered that. Rian glanced at her, disbelief in his eyes. You mean it was deliberate? Alara's shoulders tightened. I'm afraid so. And you said it came without warning, right? No external attack, no missile, just a sound. He swallowed hard. Yes. Then the station went completely dead. I grabbed a pocket recorder, sealed myself in the pod, set the auto launch, and hoped someone would find me. Alara stood, pacing, a sound capable of frying quantum relays. That requires precision. We're looking at an intelligent plan to silence colonies. Rian's voice cracked. Why? What do they gain by cutting us off? Alara looked out the beige transparent bulkhead window. The Los Prime glowed dimly, its fractured crust leaking patches of dark energy. I don't know yet. But whatever it is, they're closing in on Echo 7 next. Our network is the last link. She turned back to him. Can you describe anything else? Anyone you saw? He thought for a moment. Before I left, I saw a shape outside the hub window, something tall, slender, like a shadow against the starfield. No features, just a silhouette. Then the lights went out. Alara tapped her pad, pulling up the station's camera feeds. Let's see if our arrays caught anything. She overlaid the hub's external cameras. Frames flickered static, then a streak of darkness against the starlit void. There, she pointed. A shadow passed slowly, too deliberate to be debris. It paused, as if observing, then receded into the black. Rian's face went pale. It was watching us. Alara closed her eyes for a moment, collecting her thoughts. We'll need to analyze these recordings and compare them with the blackout pattern. If we can map the sequence, we might predict the next target or even send a warning pulse before it happens. Rian managed a weak nod. Whatever you need, I'll help. She offered him a half-smile. First, get some rest. You've been through a lot. Then we'll work together to piece this puzzle apart. He closed his eyes, exhaustion overtaking him. Alara guided him to a nearby bunk pod and activated its semi-sleep mode. As he drifted off, she returned to her consoles. Alone again, she set the station's main screens to display the colony map. 11 darkened dots pulsed defiantly against a network of light. Echo 7's dot blinked, waiting. Alara placed a hand on the console. We'll find you, she whispered, to Rian, to the missing colonies, to humanity. I promise. Behind her, Lynx's voice chimed in, soft and unwavering. Dr. Voss, I am ready to assist. Alara exhaled. Then let's begin. The lights inside Echo 7 dimmed as Dr. Alara Voss ran the signal comparison again. The room was silent except for the soft humming of power cores deep within the station walls. Outside, the Los Prime spun slowly, its broken surface pulsing with faint, eerie light. On her screen, waveforms danced, some smooth and regular, others jagged and distorted. She leaned closer, narrowing her eyes. She had isolated the sound from Rian's escape pod, the strange tone he'd recorded just before Delphi 9 went dark. It wasn't random, not noise. It was structured. LY next, she said, keeping her eyes on the data, overlay the signal from Delphi 9 with the last known signal from Epsilon 9. Processing, the AI replied smoothly. Lines began to align on the display, frequencies matched, with only small shifts in pitch and timing. Alara's stomach tightened. This wasn't coincidence. It's the same signal, she said aloud. Modified slightly for distance, but it's the same pattern. Lynx responded, signal format suggests intelligent origin. Not natural. Not accidental. Alara sat back in her chair. They're broadcasting, but not to us. They're doing something to the relays, disabling them with a specific frequency. A sudden thought hit her. Next, invert the waveform and run it through quantum decryption. Working. Lines of symbols began to appear on the monitor, patterns, curves, then characters. Not human. The language was unfamiliar, but it wasn't gibberish. It was a message. What is this? She whispered. Unknown language detected, Next said. Analyzing syntax, attempting translation. Seconds ticked by. Then a sentence appeared on the screen, formed from raw data and decoded fragments. Silence is survival. Alara stared at the words. A chill ran through her spine. The message wasn't meant for humans. It was something left behind, an echo, maybe, or a warning to others. But it made one thing clear. Someone or something was trying to silence humanity. She looked at the star map again. The silence wasn't random. It moved inward, system by system. Colonies on the outer edge went first, then the middle ring. Now only a few inner sectors and Echo 7 remained. The pattern was deliberate. Next, project the blackout curve, she said. A digital path lit up the screen, flowing like dark ink across the stars. The outer colonies had been first, remote, scattered, easy targets. Then came the more populated systems, all heading toward the center. It's not just sabotage, she whispered. It's strategy. Lynx's tone changed. Dr. Voss, deep scan from external sensors, has detected a fluctuation in folded space. Alara's hands froze. Show me. The main monitor flickered. At first, it looked like static. Then a distortion, barely visible, rippled across the screen. A faint shimmer, like heat waves moving through vacuum. Is that a ship? She asked. No identifiable propulsion. No hull signature. Structure is abstract. Non-Newtonian geometry. Alara leaned forward, heart pounding. You're telling me it doesn't follow physical rules? Correct. Next replied. It exists partially in folded dimensions. Likely origin of the signal disruption. She stared at the shimmer, unable to look away. The shape twisted slightly, not like a moving object, but like an idea taking form. And then, just for a second, it paused. The signal distortion changed. A new sentence appeared on the screen. You are noise. Alara's breath caught in her throat. It sees us. Confirmed. Next replied. Echo 7 has been detected. Probability of network isolation within 72 hours, 98.2%. The shimmer faded from the screen. The silence returned. Alara stood slowly. Her legs felt heavy, like gravity had increased. Everything was falling into place now, the pattern, the tone, the message. The colonies hadn't just lost contact. They had been deliberately cut off. Erased. Not by pirates. Not by war. By something that didn't want to hear humanity anymore. And it had a name. She would give it one. The Silex, she said. A silence that moves. She backed away from the screen and turned to face the room, now dimmer than before. The station felt colder. Smaller. They're not destroying us, she said. They're disconnecting us. One voice at a time. Lynx remained quiet for a moment before replying. Shall I initiate evacuation protocols? Alara clenched her fists. No. If we run, we disappear too. But if we act, maybe we can make them listen. Maybe we can send a signal they can't ignore. She turned back to the screen. The stars blinked beyond the glass, cold and uncaring. We've been talking too softly, she whispered. It's time to shout. The atmosphere inside Echo 7 had shifted. It was no longer a quiet research station. It felt like a countdown had begun, one Alara could almost hear in the walls. Every screen, every console, every sensor was under constant watch. The silence outside was growing thicker, pressing in. The Silex were close. Alara stood in the core lab, staring at a holographic model of the Los Prime spinning slowly above the command table. Below its fractured crust, ancient energy fields still pulsed, remnants of dark matter activity from when the star had collapsed long ago. The readings were unstable, dangerous, but they could be used. We can build a pulse, Alara said. Her voice was calm, but her heart raced. Rian, now mostly recovered, stood across from her. He looked thinner than before, eyes still shadowed by what he'd seen. A pulse? Of what? You mean like a signal? No, Alara replied. Something stronger. A burst of energy unlike anything the Silex have encountered. Something loud enough to break through their interference. something they can't block or silence. Rian stepped closer to the display. You're talking about using the star. She nodded. The gravity well of the Los Prime still holds immense dark energy. If we harness it using the station's relay towers, we can amplify a quantum signal, turn it into a pulse. It won't be just communication, it will shake folded space itself. Rian looked uneasy. How much damage are we talking? Alara hesitated. If we fire it, the pulse could ripple through nearby systems. It might trigger a chain reaction. The outer shell of the Los Prime is already unstable. We could shatter stars. Silence hung between them. The weight of the decision was immense. Then why risk it? Rian asked quietly. Why not stay hidden? Let the Silex pass us by. Alara turned away, walking to the observation window. Beyond it, stars shimmered like distant candles. Because that's what they want. They want us quiet. Alone. Forgotten. That's not survival, that's surrender. She paused before continuing. 2 centuries ago, Earth lost contact with its colonies. We thought it was just a tech failure. But it fractured our species. Billions died in isolation. We promised never to let that happen again. I won't let it happen now. Rian didn't answer right away. Then, finally, he nodded. What do you need me to do? Hours passed in a blur of work. The entire station shifted to emergency mode. Alara and Rian rewired the relay towers to channel energy into a central emitter. Lynx ran simulations constantly, adjusting parameters to avoid immediate collapse. But every test came with the same warning. Warning: structural failure likely. Estimated survivability, 21%. Still, they pushed on. In the command center, a red light flashed. Lynx's voice echoed from the speakers. Fold space distortion approaching. Estimated Silex arrival in 36 hours. Alara didn't flinch. Then we have 36 hours to finish the pulse. While Rian climbed into the maintenance shafts to reroute coolant lines, Alara sealed herself in the signal chamber. She worked with tools, not just code, tightening bolts, welding circuits, fusing unstable cores. Her fingers bled, but she didn't stop. At one point, she paused to rest and opened a secure personal log. Personal record, Alara Voss. If this is my last entry, I want to be clear. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of disappearing, of letting silence win. We built this network to stay connected, to remind ourselves that we're not alone in this galaxy. If someone finds this, and if the stars are still speaking, know this. I didn't go quiet. I made noise. She saved the log and closed her eyes for a moment. Then she got back to work. Later, in the central corridor, the station commander, Captain Dallin Eris, appeared unexpectedly on a secure line. He had been stationed on a nearby supply freighter, monitoring Echo 7 remotely. His face filled the screen, tense and angry. Alara, I received your transmission. You're planning to detonate a pulse using a dead star's core? That's suicide. She didn't blink. It's the only way to cut through the Silex interference. We can warn the rest of the colonies. There are inhabited systems near the Los Prime, Dallin argued. If you're wrong, you'll destroy them. Alara stood her ground. If I do nothing, they'll be lost anyway. One by one. No one will know. No one will help. I can't authorize this. I'm not asking, she said simply, and cut the transmission. By the next day, the final components were in place. The pulse array towered above the station's energy grid, humming with raw power. Alara stood at the console, Rian beside her, both in suits in case the chamber breached. Lynx confirmed the final sequence. Pulse capacity, 100%. Destination, inner core relay. Estimated activation window, 15 minutes. Alara looked at Rian. He gave her a small nod. Let's make it loud. She pressed the activation key. The chamber lit up in white blue light. The pulse began to build, feeding off the Los Prime's core. The entire station trembled as power surged through conduits not meant to hold such force. Outside, cracks formed across the surface of the dead star. The countdown started. 10, 9, 8. Alara felt the weight of it all, the lives in the silent systems, the risk, the hope. 3, 2, 1. She hit transmit. A wave of energy exploded outward, brighter than any sun. It raced through folded space, faster than light, louder than thought. It passed through interference. It tore through the silence. The star shook, and the Silex felt it. The moment the pulse fired, the universe changed. A deep vibration ran through Echo 7, so powerful it felt like the station's bones might snap. Every bolt, panel, and beam groaned under the force. Alara Voss gripped the edge of the control panel, her body trembling as the shockwave spread through space faster than she thought possible. The lights dimmed. Screens flickered. For a moment, time felt like it had paused. Then the main display lit up in blinding white. "LY next," she shouted over the sound of metal creaking. "Report status." The AI's voice crackled with static. "Pulse transmission successful. Fold space disturbance expanding at projected velocity. All systems experiencing temporary overload." "Any damage to the core?" she asked. A pause. Then, the Lowe's prime stability declining. "Surface fractures detected. Core reaction accelerating." Rian's voice came over the comm from the engineering deck. "Alara, we've got breaches in the outer hull. Cooling systems are failing. The dark matter chambers are overheating." She ran from the control room, her boots clanging against the steel floor. "Can we shut it down?" "No," Rian said, breathing hard. "The core's past the limit. We triggered something deep. It's not stopping." As she reached the main shaft, alarms began to sound, long, low tones that echoed through the station. Emergency lights flashed red. She looked out one of the side windows just in time to see the surface of the Lowe's prime begin to split. Cracks webbed across its crust, glowing with hot blue light. Pieces of the dead star floated up, breaking apart like stone in a storm. Then the light changed. A second wave erupted from the star, brighter, hotter, more violent. A pulse of dark energy surged out in all directions. It wasn't just a signal anymore. It was a cosmic scream. Alara ducked as a shockwave struck the station. The floor shook violently. Panels tore from the walls. Sparks sprayed from overhead conduits. "LY next," she shouted. "Shield the core array." Unable to comply. Energy surge exceeds shield capacity. System integrity at 22% and falling. Alara forced herself to keep moving. She reached the secondary control room where Rian was rerouting power manually. He looked up, sweating and pale. "We bought ourselves a message," he said. "But the price—" He didn't finish. Behind him, on the wall of monitors, they watched the effect spread. A nearby gas giant's rings shattered into dust. One of the smaller stars flickered, then collapsed inward. It was unstable, barely held together by its own gravity. The pulse had been too much. It imploded, pulling debris with it. Rian stared at the screen. "We just broke a star." Alara didn't respond. She knew what that meant. Lives. Stations. Ships. Not all of them could have evacuated in time. "I knew this would happen," she whispered. "But we had to do it. If we didn't—" She pointed at a different screen. New signals were coming in, dozens of them. Tiny lights blinked where there had been only silence before. "Look," she said. "They heard us." The network map lit up with life. Distant colonies began to respond. Messages came in, short and panicked, but full of relief. "Echo 7, is that you? We thought we were alone." "Signal received. We're alive." The flood of responses came from across human space, voices long silenced now shouting back across the stars. Alara sat down hard, her body suddenly heavy with exhaustion. Her hands shook as she read the incoming transmissions. She couldn't stop smiling, even as tears filled her eyes. But not all the responses were from humans. One signal was different. A faint transmission, barely readable. The waveform didn't match human comms. It pulsed slowly, rhythmically. "LY next," she said, sitting upright. "Trace that signal." Analyzing. Source unknown. Pattern matches previous interference signatures. Alara leaned in close. The message was short. "You have spoken out of turn." The display glitched. For a second, every screen on Echo 7 went black. Then one by one, they returned. Alara looked at Rian. He was silent, staring at her. "They know we're still here," he said. She nodded slowly. "We knew they would hear it." Outside the window, the remains of the Lowe's prime drifted in shattered pieces. Echo 7 floated in the debris, its hull damaged but holding. "For now." She stood. "Now the rest of humanity knows too. We're not alone. And we're not helpless." He looked at her, eyes searching. "Do you think they'll retaliate?" She didn't answer right away. "I think we started something we can't stop." A long pause. Then she said, more firmly, "But maybe that's what we needed. We've been quiet too long." Above them, the stars still shimmered, but some now flickered, unsteady. The silence was broken. The debris field around the Lowe's prime drifted slowly in the silence of space. What once had been a dense, dead star was now scattered into fragments, glowing shards of ancient matter orbiting in slow chaos. Echo 7 hung at the edge of it all, bruised and battered, but alive. Inside the station, emergency lights still pulsed in red. Several hallways had collapsed. Systems flickered in and out of function. Yet the heart of the station, Its communication core still burned bright. The pulse had done its job. Dr. Alara Voss stood in the control chamber, surrounded by screens flashing with light. Messages streamed in from across human space, signals they had believed lost forever. Colony after colony was replying. "LY next," Alara said quietly, her voice still hoarse. "Run a summary of confirmed signal re-establishments." The AI's voice responded, more stable now than it had been during the pulse surge. 57 colonies have restored contact. 8 additional relays responding. Long-range link with Earth Command. Reconnected. Alara closed her eyes. Relief washed through her like a wave. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel alone. Behind her, Rian stepped into the room, wiping soot from his hands. His jumpsuit was torn at the shoulder, and dried blood marked the side of his forehead, but he smiled when he saw her. "It's holding," he said. "I patched the main coolant line. Link says the generators are stable for now." She nodded. "Good work." They both stood there for a moment, listening to the soft hum of the restored systems. There was damage everywhere: burned consoles, cracked glass, bent steel. But beneath the wreckage, the station was still breathing. And more importantly, the network was alive again. Alara tapped one of the touchscreens and opened a live feed from the inner colonies. A pale blue world appeared, Calyx 4. Its skies were lit by twin moons, and its city shimmered with artificial light. People were gathering in their streets, looking up at the stars, hearing voices from across the void. The silence had ended. A voice crackled over the comms. "Echo 7, this is Earth Command. We received your pulse. Loud and clear. Stand by for reinforcements and medical aid." "You did it, Dr. Voss." Alara replied. "Thank you, Command. Damage is heavy, but we're operational. We've confirmed the presence of a non-human intelligence, the Silex. They attacked the network, not with weapons, but with silence." There was a pause on the other end. "We've begun analyzing the signal fragments. We'll prepare a report for the United Systems Council. You've made first contact, in the worst way possible." Alara gave a faint smile. "I figured as much." She cut the line and looked at Rian. "It's not over." He raised an eyebrow. "You think they'll come back?" "I know they will," she said. The pulse woke them. For all we know, they see us as intruders, or maybe just noise they want to erase. But now they know we won't be silent anymore. Rian nodded slowly. "So what now?" "We prepare," she said. "We study their patterns. We upgrade our relays. We teach every colony how to send their own pulse if it happens again." She turned back to the screen, watching the stars twinkle. Many of them were still dark. Some might never return. But others had come back, blinking slowly into life, like candles in the wind. Another message arrived. This one was from New Ether, a research colony Alara thought was lost. The signal was weak, but steady. "We're here. We heard you. Please respond." She typed quickly. "Echo 7 here. You're not alone. Help is coming." Rian leaned beside her. "That one feels good." She nodded. Every voice matters. As the station began stabilizing, Alara returned to her personal log. She sat down, opened the recording panel, and spoke softly into the quiet. Log entry, final. The pulse was sent. The silence is broken. The Silex are real. They're watching. But we spoke. We refused to disappear. And now the stars are speaking back. She paused, then said with steady certainty. "We were noise. Now we are signal." She closed the log. Outside the window, the remains of the Los Prime continued to scatter through space. But far beyond that, beyond the wreckage and fear, was a sky that had started to reply. And for the first time in a long while, Alara Voss felt hope.